The third term of the basic education calendar kicked off with no issues in most districts this week, but learners at Soweto-based Rathembe Junior Secondary School did not attend any classes. In fact, parents and the SGB shut the gates in protest over the poor conditions at the school. Besides mismanagement allegations at schools, what other challenges are there? That's the question we're asking this morning. Let's bring in the National Professional Teachers Organisation of South Africa. That's NAPTOSA. Its Vice President, Tinus joins us via our video link this morning. Tinus, thanks very much for joining us, and thank you for your patience this morning. I want to begin by highlighting again the Rathembe Secondary School in Soweto. We saw the photographs of the appalling conditions there that learners are expected to work in and that teachers are expected to teach in. What's NAPTOSA's response to that?
Good morning, Michelle, and morning to the viewers as well. Yes, it's appalling. It is. It's not only that school. That school is now being highlighted by the news coverage and the things that the parents did. But it seems to be, in NAPTOSA's opinion, if we listen to our members in all the provinces, it's a general problem in terms of infrastructure, that even new schools that are built is not up to standard. And in some schools in the Eastern Cape, we've got schools that are newly built that the toilets are still not functional. There's no water supply. So NAPTOSA is hugely concerned about the infrastructure of our schools, especially in the disadvantaged communities.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that parents and members of the SGB had to take to the streets, had to shut the gates of the school on day one of term 3, for them to actually get the attention of the department, that's appalling, isn't it, Tinus? Where does the responsibility lie insofar as school management is concerned?
You see, the school management, there's very little that they can do, because the funding for the infrastructure must come from the national department. There is funds available. There are conditional grants for infrastructure development, and schools, especially schools which are no fee paying schools, where should they get the funds from? They can only highlight their challenges via the district to the provincial departments, but the responsibility lies with the national department or the provincial departments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We talk about the outcomes of every year, our matric outcomes, how schools have succeeded, how they've failed, whether they've achieved university entrance, etc. How do we expect our learners to get anywhere in these kinds of conditions?
You know what, what you're saying now in terms of laboratories, that these are not functional. How can children be prepared for life after school or entrance into universities where they've got to take further qualifications if their basis which should be at school level is not up to scratch because of the infrastructure that is not available? So we disadvantage, and the children has got a constitutional right to education, not necessarily quality education. That is a debate for another day. But they're entitled to education, and the provinces via the national departments should provide the infrastructure that would, especially now talking about sciences and talking about laboratories, which are in most of these schools are at, it's appalling. And that put our learners at a disadvantage when they enter into higher education.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the learners are expected to go so much further than a learner at a school that has, not necessarily an affluent school, but a school that has all of the infrastructure that's needed to make for a conducive environment. Tinus, I want to ask you about NAPTOSA's weighing in on education regulation changes. So I've got the statement here from NAPTOSA. It's arguing against what the basic education department is trying to do, and that's to push through proposed amendments to regulations on minimum norms and standards. Can you clarify for us what the DBE is trying to do here?
You know what, the regulations come from 2013, and now there was an attempt to alter the regulations, and NAPTOSA had a huge problem with the way that it was done, because normally these regulations or comment is published, and we were not aware, we were made aware through Equal Education that Biden somehow got hold of these regulations or amendments. But NAPTOSA's biggest concern is that the whole in the 2013 regulations, there's specific timeframes. Now, in the amendment, the timeframes are deleted. What are the consequences of taking the time frames away? So it's an open-ended. We'll do it someday. What day? Which century or which decade will it be done? Because there's not putting a time limit to it puts a force on or forces the department to come to the party and do something. Now with no time frames, it's just open-ended. There's no responsibility, or there's no ways you can hold the department responsible because it's open-ended. There's no time frames. They will do it someday.
And when we talk about minimum norms and standards, we're talking about a number of issues, but including infrastructure at schools.
Yes. Specifically, it tells you what a school should be, and obviously on new schools built, there must be certain regulations of how a new school will be built, but also then on existing schools, getting rid of asbestos schools, the ablution facilities, toilets at schools. Those are so it's not only applicable to newly built schools.
Yeah.
It is getting rid of mud schools, toilets, all of that. That's in the minimum norms and standards for infrastructure.
And this is in a context where the department itself and a number of provincial departments in basic education have already had a number of judgments against them for failure to adhere to those regulations.
Yes, that's true. And you see, but taking if these proposed amendments go through, there's no time frame. So how can what are the court cases going to be? On what grounds are we going to fight these court cases? Because it's open-ended, there's no time frame. So the department will do it when someday you can't force them. So that's a huge problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Those timeframes are needed, especially for accountability. Tinus, let me thank you for your time this morning. Tinus de Preez is with the National Professional Teachers Organisation of South Africa. That's NAPTOSA, of course, as we're discussing all manner of things insofar as quality education is concerned in our country.